Greetings, everyone. I am Rafael Casso, and welcome to Aim to Thrive, Wellbeing Education for the construction industry, where we learn life skills to move from a surviving to thriving mindset, health, safety, and well-being empowerment through education. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce Anton Tyers, the Nexus Logistics GM of Safety and People. Anton is an expert in operations, occupational health, workplace safety, people, culture, and organization performance. I'm sure, like me, you're all very enthusiastic to understand the leadership and management skills required to create a dynamic and safe company culture. Anton, welcome to Aim to Thrive.
Thanks, Rafael. Really happy to be here.
Anton, please share a little bit about yourself and your day-to-day role at Nexus Logistics.
Thanks. So as you've introduced, I'm the GM of Safety and People. So my role in my current, I work in the logistics world now, long history of working across multiple industries, including construction. Spent some time as a regional health and safety advisor for Carters, which is a supplier to many in your network. But have evolved into the logistics space and thoroughly enjoyed here. So my remit covers off all aspects of safety across. We're a subsidiary of the Ports of Auckland, so principally container transport, but we also operate a full truck fleet, 18 trucks, so we're the largest container movement truck fleet in Auckland. We've got a nationwide 4PL network, and we've just recently stood up a cross-dock facility to handle all of the international freight for Countdown New Zealand. So we do all of their demanding of containers and processing of all of their inbound product distribution for the stores nationally. So we've got a bit on. So from a safety perspective, I have a lot. I also look after the full HR function for the business.
Fantastic. Anton, what are the key challenges in leading such a massive team to achieve a high performance culture? How have these challenges changed over time, and how have you overcome these challenges?
It's a fantastic question, and it's probably one that you've answered a lot on this forum. When I inherited this role, I think the question can be answered with one word, and that's engagement. So when we've got a disparate workforce who aren't empowered around the safety space, they refuse to engage with safety. It becomes very much about get the job done and go home. There's no ownership of their own safety or the safety of those that they work with. So one of the first things we did when we reset the executive team within this business was make a very conscious decision that safety leadership was going to be paramount to everything we do. Now, you hear a lot of people talk about safety as our number one priority. I absolutely hate that phrase because priorities change. Sure. And so it might be your priority today, it might not be your priority tomorrow. When in the construction industry, the house is being built, you're behind schedule, you're stuck with materials, you've got all these other pressures on you. If safety is only a priority, that priority very quickly goes out the window when the commercial realities of running a business kick in. Instead, we decided that safety was going to be part of our DNA. Now, we unfortunately had a fatality last year when a tornado ripped through our container yard in South Auckland, and it killed a contractor who was working on site. And while we didn't have culpability or liability for that fatality, it hit us really, really hard at a personal level. And we took stock and stopped the business and took a really good hard look at ourselves and realized that even though we had decided that safety was going to be in our DNA, we still weren't living it the way that we needed to. And so we reset once again to look at it. And so from that, we started really talking to our people. So when we're trying to lead large teams of people to do the right thing in a safety space, you've got to make safety real for people in the sense that they need to understand why it's important to do things safely. It's important because they're not coming to work for us, they're coming to work for the people that are at home waiting for them, and helping them to understand that taking that extra couple of seconds to make sure that they go home to their families, because we've had somebody in this business not go home to their family, is really important. And we keep sharing that story and we keep talking about that with our people. Talking is not enough. You've then got to make sure that you're using it's a bit of theory X from HR theory, which is that a bit of the carrot and stick. So not only do we make sure that we are rewarding really positive safety behaviours, we have a monthly exec safety award, we give out ad hoc vouchers and recognition for people who are doing wonderful things in the safety space, We stop the business twice a day to talk about safety.
Wow.
We make sure that every driver is empowered, not only driver, but reach stacker driver, head office staff, cross-dock staff, are all empowered to stop the business at any stage.
Sure.
And they have the full exec and CEO support to do that. And at first, like with any transition and cultural change, people were reluctant to believe that we were legit. Oh, here's another bunch of talking heads at an exec level who are just saying the right things because they need to do that for the board report. But when they have us actually out there with them, talking to them over and over again about safety, actually going on the job with them, looking at work as done versus work as imagined, to make sure that we've invested in them to give them safe working systems in the right environment to make sure that they are safe, and then to empower them to make those really good decisions to make sure that they go home safely to their families, has started to crack the egg. And we're not there yet, long way to go, but we feel like that's starting to turn in the right direction.
Fantastic. In your opinion, what is the connection between people, culture, and workplace safety? What are the benefits to a business which achieves a super high standard across all these different areas?
One of the things that I keep banging on about within my leadership team is that we're not doing safety for safety's sake. Safety actually gives us a competitive advantage. If you think about the fact that we've got unemployment sitting at about 3.2% at the moment, the labour market is incredibly tight. Having a really strong safety culture gives all businesses a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Also, on the flip side of it, from a commercial perspective, people want to do business with safe businesses. So you've got that from a commercial level. Within the business, you've got to have the right people with the right mindset. So that culture piece is critical. If you've got bad apples within the bunch, you've got to weed them out pretty quickly or get them on board, one of the two. But not everybody is going to be on board with everything. It's the unfortunate reality of being in business. And you've got to set a very strong mandate at a top level to say, this is our bottom line. We will not accept anything below this. And then you have to live by that. You can't bend the rules because things get a bit hard. You've got to live by that. And people then start to respond to it. So the linkage between culture, so your internal culture within, so that's the engagement of your staff, it's the belief systems of your staff. And keep in mind that we're working in South Auckland, so we've got a huge diverse workforce. So making sure that you're aligning all of the values of your staff with the culture of your business, and making sure that within that culture, there is that underlying belief around safety, that we do this once, we do it right, and then we down tools and we go home to our families.
Nice. Yeah, fantastic. Anton, take me through the work that you're doing with linking hazards to a hazard map.
Yeah, so this is quite an exciting space for us, because not only are we looking at hazard maps, but there was a bit of work done a little while ago in the academic literature around a concept called hazard networks. So you've got your hazard maps, which is where you have a site map. So from a construction perspective, mostly going to be a building site. In that building site, you're going to have multiple hazards. Some of those hazards are going to exist in a more concentrated area and part of that site. So storage of things like your ramset cartridges for your nail guns and things like that, right? So you've got some big hazards there. That on a hazard map would look red. And then, the other side of the site where everything's nice and safe, it might look green. What that allows you to do from a construction perspective is to manage the areas of your site which have higher risks, and make sure that your people have the right skills, experience, training, and PPE to work in that area and work safely. What we're now doing is taking that to what we think is quite a cool new level, and we're actually now looking at the interdependencies between hazards. So we've got, if you like, think of it like a node and rail network that links all of your hazards together. So in our world, think about truck drivers. So truck drivers are out on the road. They're driving along. They're exposed to multiple risks. We inherently understand that as humans, because we've got plasticity in our brains, which allows us to kind of figure out the risks. But there's no map that says fatigue has a direct influence over a truck driver potentially having an accident. And so what you do is you build up all of your hazards, and then you have these lines going between them all. The thicker the line, the higher the interdependency between the two hazards. So if you then conversely put that back to, say, a building site, and you say, I don't know, just off the top of my head, the use of a nail gun. So the use of a nail gun potentially could be hazardous on a work site in and of itself. Now, if you've got some other nodes around that, say wet weather conditions, a sloping site, warped frames, and builder fatigue, and a nail gun, all of a sudden you've got a whole lot of interdependent hazards, which collectively, if we go back to the James Reason Swiss cheese model, all of a sudden open up the real potential for an adverse outcome to occur, an accident to occur. Yeah, so that's kind of, it's a concept we haven't quite bedded in yet, but we're quite excited about it. The follow-up from that, from a theoretical point of view, is to then start putting some modeling around the thicker lines. You give them a higher risk rating, and then start looking at your interdependent risk scores, which allow you to, because traditionally we grab a risk and we say, well, the risk of this happening is this, look at likelihood and consequence, possibility of avoidance, we give it a score. But it's all very subjective mostly. But if we start putting a little bit more math in behind it, math isn't for everyone, but it's, I don't know, it's just quite a cool concept that we're starting to bed into this business.
Fantastic. Oh, that's really exciting. Anton, what do you believe is the connection with health, safety, and well-being? And how have you seen well-being, how have you seen that sort of area within in health and safety sort of change over the last few years, the focus on well-being?
This is probably one of the most important areas of work in the health and safety space, is around the generalized well-being of workers. As we all know, traditionally health and safety was around don't hit yourself with a hammer. Yeah, that was really about it. But as we've evolved as a health and safety industry, and all industries evolve, more and more people are realizing that the holistic well-being of staff is got, not only does it have a critical influence over your health and safety metrics, but it has a critical influence over actually performance in general. So a well workforce is more productive. You have less absenteeism, you have less presenteeism. The research stacks up that looking after your workforce and making sure that people are healthy and able to come to work to make good decisions is critically important. One of the things we're looking at the moment, because we run shift operations and night shifts and all the rest of it, is fatigue management and sleep patterns, because from a wellness perspective, that's a massive risk. There's been some pretty cool research come out around the reason why people make poor decisions later in the day. And that comes down to a lot of it to brain chemistry associated with sleep patterns. The other thing that we face a lot in South Auckland is unfortunately, we have obesity problems. So we've got issues with that. So we can't fix that, because it's a very fine line between straying from you need to be functionally fit to do your role, as opposed to saying, mate, you've had too many pies on the weekend, you need to go for a jog. It is a bit of a line. You've got to be very, very careful to make sure that you're not offending people and not asking people to do something that they just don't want to do, doesn't fit with their lifestyle or culture. But it's about giving people the tools if they want them to try and improve their wellness metrics.
Nice. Yeah,
I don't think it's not rocket science to say that if people are sleeping well, they're eating well, they're going to be better at work, they're going to feel better, and that they're going to be more attuned to potential other risks within the workplace, as opposed to somebody who's coming in tired, hungover, really eating badly, gets the massive 2 o'clock energy crash, needs 3 cans of V to get them going again. You know, that kind of person, well, they might be perfectly safe. The long-term contribution to the rest of the team is not going to be as effective as if they were taking really good care of themselves. The other piece to this is the psychological well-being. So that's a massive, obviously a massive field, and something that quite rightly is getting more and more airtime within New Zealand, because we have some pretty terrible mental health statistics in this country. And a lot of it does go back to people's work. So when you look at people's sense of self, a lot of it is around what they do. Yeah, you stand around the barbecue, having a few beers. Generally, the first thing people say to each other is, what do you do for work? So our ability to work is very inherently tied to who we are as people. If that work is toxic, if that work is stressful, if you have all of these other factors going in, then your well-being markers are going to go seriously downhill. And then the risks of suicide, of self-harm, of all of those, of family violence occurring, all of those things start to ramp up. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that the workplace is a massive contributor to people's mental well-being. So we need to structure workplaces which look after that, which actually enable people to say, you know what, I don't feel okay, and to provide support for those people as much as they can. It's scalable, of course. Small businesses aren't exactly going to have a psychiatrist on staff waiting around, but you know, scalable. Our business is 100 odd, and we have EAP available for our staff. We do an annual fundraising for Lifeline to ensure that it is kept front of mind. We're constantly reinforcing to people, if you don't feel okay, there is support available to you. Nobody needs to be a superhero in this business. And if you take that back to, link it all the way back to the safety space as well, so make sure you've got a psychologically safe workforce. It's helping to build people's resilience as well, because times are tough, right? We've got a cost of living crisis. We've got people who are under severe pressure. Workplaces are screaming out for staff. Some places are short-staffed, which means there's a lot of load going on to people. So it's about making sure you put that right support in place, so people are healthy from not only a physical perspective, psychological perspective. They can turn up to work, they can keep that sense of self, and just do well in life.
Fantastic, Anton. Anton, last question. What is your advice to construction businesses that are struggling to cultivate a workplace with people, culture, safety, and high performance? How they're struggling to align those, and what can a business do today in order to make positive change if they're starting right from the beginning?
Lead from the front. Be, as the owner, the manager of a construction business, lead from the front. Make the safety the first thing you talk about. Don't accept mediocrity when it comes to safety performance, and empower your people to do the right thing when it comes to safety. I remember having a conversation with a builder up north when I was working for Carter's, and he very proudly came over, and he was building a 4-story building up on a hill, beautiful building. And he proudly came over and said to me, "Oh, do you like my safety systems?" I said, "Mate, you've got no nets up the top." And he was like, "No, that's right." He said, "The purlins will catch them." Oh, well, okay, all right. I had to leave the site. I was just going to do it. So that's an example of maybe not leading from the front.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think the advice would be lead from the front, and as tough as it is, make sure that you're investing financially in your safety systems, making sure that the guys have got the gear that they need to do the job well. It is tough because, mate, the construction industry is squeezed at the moment, and we all understand that, and it is really hard to then put money into something which doesn't have a direct financial benefit. But as I said earlier, having a really strong safety culture can become a competitive advantage. The building industry is a tough industry to be in, but if you're seen as not a world leader, but if you're seen as a leader in the safety space, you've got good systems, you look after the guys feel like they can report things and do things in a safe manner, then potentially that will help with the long-term benefits to the company. Fantastic.
Great advice. Thank you so much for that, Anton. Anton, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.
And I hope to have another talk again one day soon.
Look forward to it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cheers.
Yeah.